Can you see me for who I could be? Or do you think I'm only what's happened to me? Would my life be different if I had some help? Or do you think I should change all by myself? I understand if you don't care what becomes of me. But can you see me for who I could be? Can you see me for who I could be? I don't want pity or sympathy. I just want a chance and some hope in my heart. I try so hard to find a place to start. You've never known children with a life like me. Can you see me for who I could be?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. In the interest of time, primarily yours, we are going to start the program. So I ask that you continue to enjoy your dinner while the program proceeds. Nobody goes home hungry, but you're going to go home well-informed and well-fed. My name's Denny Armington. I'm the president of Youth Opportunity Foundation, and I am thank you for that. Undeserved yet. But, I am so pleased that you have chosen to spend the evening with us. Both those of you in Carmel, and we are actually streaming this live around the world. So we are very pleased that you are here. We have a very special message to impart to you this evening in a very short period of time. So please bear with us. But we are going to begin the program. And I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about Youth Opportunity Foundation. This is a relatively new organization designed to be a nationwide public charity. Our mission is to assist troubled teens, and that's important. I'm going to come back to that time and time again. We are here to assist troubled teens become successful adults. That's our mission. We're designed to complement the good works done in residential programs, and you're about to hear from Mr. Ron Hunter, who the brainchild of this foundation actually emanated from Mr. Hunter, based on his work, 9 years in youth treatment centers, primarily behavioral and mental health situations. But the programs can only do so much. And that's why the foundation has come into being, is that we are going to take that situation and hopefully help multiply on the opportunities and options available for these children. We are intending to not attack just the effects of the mental issues that they are dealing with or have been dealing with, but also, more importantly, attack the causes. We're going to the root causes of the situation. We're to encourage social impact investing. So this is about assisting not just the child, but actually the community, because if we do things correctly, this will mean that we all benefit from these efforts. And to develop public-private relationships. We can't do it alone, and there are lots of people who are out collecting monies for children. We appreciate that. But we need to involve everybody in terms of this effort so that we can see this to the end, so that we can complete the effort on behalf of these children and make sure that they get to the point that we think is appropriate and they think is self-independence, and they feel good about themselves in that process. We also have this is a one-person effort so far, but I've got lots of people behind this effort. I'd like to, first of all, thank all the folks who have come together to make this happen, both the YOY staff, certainly Lindsay Ford, the Sanders Group that are helping us from an AV standpoint, and all the Psalms Catering Group who have made this dinner possible. But I also have a very capable board of directors who is assisting me in this effort, and I would like to hold the hands up of all the board directors who are with us, who joined us this evening. I know we have Mr. Ron Hunter to my left, Dr. Lance Trexler. I didn't see anybody raise their hand. You guys don't take direction very well. Mr. Dan French, who's here from city of Detroit. Ralph Carmichael, here with us from Lansing, Michigan. Mike Boaz, from Indianapolis, and I think I hit everybody if I'm capable. So that's a good sign. As I mentioned earlier, the foundation was the brainchild of Mr. Ron Hunter, and to get us started this evening, we're going to take a tact here. I've tried to immerse you, and we will work to effectively immerse you in the situation that our children are growing up in, and this is not an inner city issue. I want that to be very clear. We all of our children are impacted by this, and now we're talking about my kids, my grandkids, so it's become personal in this process, but Ron knows the situation better than I. He's been at this for 9 years, and I would like to invite him to the podium to explain the situation our children are currently confronting. Ron?
Thank you. People ask me every day, what do you do? What is Youth Opportunity? What are you involved with? What type of services? We don't understand. I said, we're about hope. We provide hope. Because without hope, there's only hopelessness. Nothing to connect to. It took me 57 years, which was 8 years ago, to find my purpose-driven mission in life. For years, I bought companies, sold companies, chased the dreams. What was success? Then I was introduced to an organization in Michigan that was an all-girls school. If you haven't seen a pregnant 12-year-old girl struggling with no parents, ward of the state, that's hopelessness. That's darkness. I struggled with it. I have a tough time with it today. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm at the point in life now where I'm looking at what really is important anymore. And without our youth, we don't have a future. And if we don't help our youth become productive members of society, we will have nothing. We will not have a future. I get frustrated on a daily basis because everyone says, yeah, I'd like children, I'd like to help them, but not in my backyard or my back pocket. I just assume them not even answer me. If you mean it and you understand what we do every day, and the many men and women that are watching this streaming live tonight from all of our campuses in the 5 states, I'd like to give them a round of applause and thank them for their continuous efforts. Every day they go to work to help these young kids have a better way of life. Let's give them a strength. Mr. Armington talks about what I have done. I'm flattered, but I have done nothing except stay with my dream, turning dreams into realities for children. I didn't know what I was doing. I just was guided. It was a divine intervention that took hold of me. 2 years ago, we were struggling, trying to find out, raise money, how to help children. Our banker, who is here tonight, he believed in us, started financing a few deals. And then I met a gentleman named Jim Hill, who is president of our company. He's sitting to my right. Jim, stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Hill. Brian Newpaver. Brian, stand up for a moment. These two gentlemen, after meeting them, changed my life. They have over 24 years experience in helping children at every level. They're dedicated, they're committed. They do work that honestly I couldn't do. I don't think I have the mettle for it. They have taken our company to the point now where we are the leader in the United States in what we do, and we just keep growing, and I thank both of you. The day I met you was a great day of my life. I thank you very much. Christopher Reeve once said that once you choose hope, everything else becomes easier. Once you choose hope. I'd like to tell you a short story. There was a young man back in the early 50s that was born under unique circumstances. Premature, was told that child would never live. Grew up in a tough environment. At age 16, decided it was time to leave, go on his own, because he felt hopeless. There was nothing else left except to go into the unknown. That young man worked hard, never gave up hope, never quit believing. His faith in God, his faith in himself, and his faith in people. The young man went on to marry a wonderful woman that helped guide him and direct him through life. They had a daughter who has been loved, cherished, that really talked about what life was about, a love that person had never had. That young man went on to be an international businessman, Entrepreneur of the Year several times. And now that young man stands in front of you today, helping other children realize that hope, helping them understand through gentlemen like this and our 750 employees. Don't give up hope. Let's help these kids. We have a prayer. It simply says, God, release the chains of darkness from these youth so that they may see what your great plan is for them. You have a chance tonight and ongoing to release those chains of darkness from these children. Let's do it together. Let's make a difference. Enjoy your evening. God bless. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We've designed this purposefully to be a audience participation opportunity. So, Ron, I was going to ask you a question, but you've already answered it. What's the most important thing the YOI can give to children? It's hope. You were very eloquent about that. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Hunter while we have... He's still mic'd, first of all. He doesn't need a microphone, but... Anyway, anybody have a question for Ron? All right. We're going to move forward. As Ron said, so eloquently said, our youth are in crisis. Statistics bear it out. You see it in the papers. Opioid crisis, abuse, school shootings. It's come to Indiana. It's only a matter of time. Our kids are in a quandary. They are being asked to assimilate more information at a quicker pace in a more challenging environment than ever before. So the situation is dire, without a doubt. And again, if we don't do something about it, shame on us. But I also need to tell you, and as Ron spoke to this, the situation is not hopeless, but we got to get to work. So I would like to invite one of our staff members from the Center for Success and Independence in Houston, Texas, Ms. Ashley Davis. So please join me on the podium.
Up here. Okay. Hello. So my name's Ashley Davis, and I am the clinical director of a boys trauma program in a juvenile detention facility, which is under the wing of the Center for Success. The Center for Success was founded in 2001 and founded by Robert Woods, Mary Lou Erblin, and Carl Webster. And basically what it was is it was the response to a need that the three of them saw to address youth who had dual diagnosis issues, so substance use and a mental health diagnosis. The center is a 44-bed, 24-hour residential treatment center. Primarily the therapy modalities used are what are called dialectical behavior therapy and trauma-focused therapy. What else do we need to know about the center?
Actually, tell us about the role that you play there specifically as a therapist.
Okay, so my program, what happened is the center, the center partnered with Harris County, the largest county in Texas, and the county really saw a need for youth who had trauma in their lives, and they started getting a lot of girls, and I'll say girls because that was the majority, but started getting a lot of girls who had been picked up as victims of human trafficking. Excuse me. And so with the trauma program that the center had, they decided, okay, well, let's fill that need. So what's the easiest way to keep these girls safe, but to also provide them the treatment? And unfortunately, but fortunately, it was to have them stay in juvenile detention, but to change the idea of being, for lack of, being prostituted, but rather having the public see, okay, these are actually, first of all, these are children, they're girls, and they're victims. They're not prostitutes. They didn't choose this. So the center, they partnered with Harris County, and that's where I come in. So we have 2 programs out in the juvenile detention facilities. One is a girls program that started about 4 years ago. And with the success that we have had there, I think we have an 83% success rate. So successful discharges where the girls come in, they stay 6 to 9 months. With that success, the county said, hey, you know what, we need more of this. So thankfully, thanks to a federal grant, now we have a boys program that treats the same things. And believe it or not, we have a lot of boys who have been trafficked. So that's what I do, day in and day out. And really, I'm not the one doing it, the kids are the ones doing it, because they come in and, I mean, we get them in different stages of change. So all of the ones that I deal with are court mandated. So nobody wants to have somebody tell them, this is what you have to do, this is what you need to change. But we just do our best to educate them on the grooming process and trauma in itself. And so we hope that we plant the seeds that they will then take and grow with. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Well deserved. Nothing speaks to a program quite like someone who's been through it. So I would like to invite the Sexton family to the podium now. Here they come. Lauren Sexton will join us. She was a client at the Center for Success and Independence in Houston several years ago, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her experience. She's joined by her mother, Mary Sexton, as a grateful parent. I won't speak for her. And Lauren's younger daughter, Summer. Mary's daughter, your sister. Thanks. Let's start, Lauren, with you. Can you tell us a little bit about why you ended up at the program in Houston and how that program worked?
Well, I was getting into the bad areas. I was never home. I was out doing stuff I wasn't supposed to. I didn't know who I was, and I knew that I needed to get help for my family. So it just pushed me to get there and get the help that I needed.
Great, thank you. Mary, as a mother, tell us about your struggles and what led you to the program in Houston.
As Lauren said, she was in a bad place. I had noticed some signs of her being very, I don't know what I want to say, resilient. She pulled back. She didn't want to be at home. She didn't want to be around family. She didn't want to talk to anybody. She didn't associate with any of us. She wouldn't even come down and sit and eat at dinner. She wanted to be gone all the time, where she would literally, probably ask to stay gone 5-6 days a week somewhere. I tried to put her into, therapy, asking her if she would go and speak to someone. She's always been very private. She would pull back, resist. And I started looking into places before she even knew that I was looking into places. Thank goodness I have a really good job that knew the situation I was in. They would literally let me just go in and just be on the computer continuously looking at places. And I talked to some of my colleagues because it was very hard to find something, a place that was able to give her all of the things that she needed, because she needed help with mental health disorder, which she has had since she was a child. She needed help with self-harm. She needed help with substance and alcohol abuse and addiction. And when you would go to look for places, you would find a place that dealt with addiction, but not mental health disorders. Or you would find a place that dealt with mental health disorders, but didn't want to deal with the addiction or the self-harm. Came across the center, and actually had some of my colleagues look into it. And someone that I spoke to actually just came back from touring the place and said that they had a great program. Because I didn't want to just send her 1,000 miles away from home and just hoping for the best. So I really did my homework and contacted them, and they didn't have a bed available, so it was still this struggle and waiting and hoping that I could still keep her on board, waiting for this bed. Because she'd actually got to a point where I got a text from her one day that said, "I need help, you need to get me out of here now." And I knew that was it. And so I actually called back to the center, and they're like, "We've got a bed, get down here." And it was the hardest thing that we ever did.
What may be the best thing?
It was the best thing.
Lauren, tell us from your standpoint, how did the program work and what difference it's made in your life?
What do you mean, how it worked?
Tell me the ritual that you went through on a daily basis. What did they do for you? What did they make you see? What did they teach you in terms of the process? And what difference has it made in your life?
We used to have group meetings every day, like different group sessions. I forget what they were called, but they were very helpful. You always got booklets to read through, and then you got one of a group that you could just express how you were feeling, what you didn't like about the center, and how you are wanting to change. So just being there really helped me, because at first I didn't want to go, but then I started to see, and then it hit me when a girl committed suicide when I first got there, and then my grandpa died 3 days after. And so it just pushed me a lot. So, and I knew my baby sister was going to follow in my footsteps, and I did not want that to happen. I knew my family was hurting. My grandpa that died was hurting. But they all knew I could do it. So I just pushed myself to go and get the help that I needed, and I'm a whole year and 4 months sober.
Mary, please tell us how the results of this program have changed your life.
It's changed it considerably. I feel like I have my daughter back. We did not have a good relationship, if a relationship at all. She was just so negative. She was honestly just quite mean. And we had to work through a lot of therapy, and one of the therapists at the center, which was our go-between, was Mr. Joe. And he was remarkable. He is what held us together, and even though we were 1,000 miles apart, we would do therapy. She would do therapy with him, he would do therapy with me, and then we would do a conference call where we were all together. And he would help us and give us the tools that we needed to be able to talk to one another without it turning into a screaming match, because that's what every one of our conversations would lead to. And so it's nice to be able to have her back, be able to have conversation with her, be able to enjoy activities with her, seeing her, and it was to the point I didn't enjoy being around her. When she was, prior to treatment, she was not nice to be around, and it was always very negative and hurtful, and they helped her turn around and be able to speak her feelings instead of, you know, always acting them out just because she's angry, that there's a way to resort and how you can speak to someone and tell them how you're feeling without necessarily showing it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This is living proof that treatment can work. There is hope through treatment. As stated before, does anyone have a question for Lauren, Mary, or Summer?
First of all, I just have to tell you that I appreciate you being here because you really touch us all. I mean, you do. So, thank you.
Thank you.
But I guess I would ask, what do you, I mean, there's been so much lately in the paper and all this stuff, but kind of a off-the-wall question here, but what do you think that social media has done to contribute to your whole situation?
So the question is, what role does social media play in these types of situations? Who wants to take that?
I am not a fan of social media at all. They will probably tell you that, like, I don't have it, I'm not interested in it. They will come home and they will tell me stories, and the first thing I'll say is, let me guess, social media. You know, somebody's picking on you, somebody's, you know, it's very hurtful, and I've seen stories where children resort to suicide and things, cyberbullying. It's ridiculous because if they can't get to you in person, they just get to you that way. And with her, and it gives them such an avenue to reach out to people that they shouldn't be reaching out to. I mean, that's just it. Like, I could control what she was doing inside my home. At the same time, I couldn't keep her home 24/7. I'm a single mom. I have a full-time job. Her outlets is she can talk and set anything up she wants behind my back, you know, through social media. And I'm not sure how much of that they get. I mean, I expressed my concerns and my feelings about it, and they're just thinking, oh, you know. I'm not sure how they feel about it. I know that I'm pretty sure that they have to admit that some of it is true, that
It's just a bunch of drama.
Yeah, social media makes kids feel like really bad about themselves sometimes. Like when people are commenting negative things on like other people's posts and like just random stuff like that, it just really gets to people.
but at the same time, it's almost like an addiction. It's like, it is like a drug. It's because even though it is hurtful and there's so many negative things going on social media, they can't stop. It's like driving past a car accident. Like, you have to engage, and, or at least they feel that way.
Thank you for helping join me thanking the Sextons for sharing their story. Thank you. Ashley, while I still have you here. Yeah, please. Let's talk a little bit about outcomes of treatment.
Okay.
Is Lauren the norm from what you've seen in terms of clinical treatment efforts?
Yes and no. I think that it all has to do with the stage of change that the youth are in. So if they come in and they're really ready, then we get results like Lauren. And the majority of the time, I would say yes. Yes, that does happen. And then there are some who just aren't ready.
True. Thank you. Mm-hmm. One of the other hats that Ashley wears in her role in Houston is that of a research assistant. So, Ashley, my question to you is, tell me what role applied research could play in the clinical treatment of mental and behavioral issues.
Besides everything?
Says it.
I think without research, we don't we don't know what tools to use. We don't know what therapy modalities to use. We don't know the clientele to reach out to. We don't know the methods of how we're going to reach out to them. So I think that without that piece, we're lost, really.
Thank you. And Ashley, you're from Texas. Tell us a little bit about why human trafficking is so important in the state of Texas.
We have we have so many interstates. Houston especially, we have so many interstates. We have the Mexican border right there. We have in Houston, we've got the Port of Houston, the ship channel. There's so many avenues, there's so many opportunities for youth to be trafficked all around Texas and even to other states. So it's a huge problem.
Do you think, as a therapist, that you're actually making a difference? The issue is so large. Can you see a difference?
Yes.
In what you're doing?
Yes, I can. And I say that because we have girls and boys that we've worked with who, a lot of kids will say, if I hadn't gone to the center, if I hadn't done this or that, I would be dead right now. And some of them you think, well, but then some of them I think it's true. It's true. I've had kiddos who, they're out there, they're living like adults. They're living dangerous lives, and am I still mic'd? And I got off on a tangent. I already forgot your question. I'm so sorry.
If you're making a difference.
If I'm making a difference.
I think you've answered that question. So,
yes. With successful rates, and
absolutely.
They're staying out of jail. They're staying out of the life. So.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Human trafficking is not just an issue in Texas. It's an international issue. There are hundreds of billions of dollars being generated in annual revenues trafficking these children. And as Ashley stated, most of us would probably think trafficking, it's a female issue. That's an issue of the girls. But it's not. It's an issue for boys as well. And the traffickers are not just males, they're also females. We're living in a different world, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to realize this. It's an international issue, but it's also a local issue. So I'm going to invite Pastor Hubert Nolan to join us on the podium to talk about his efforts here in the city of Indianapolis.
Yes.
Oh. Hey, it's really great to be with you guys tonight to talk a little bit about the Hope Center Indy. The Hope Center is an aftercare program. It's a faith-based refuge program for women coming out of human trafficking. What we realize is that when children and teenagers grow up, they become adults and they have the same problems that they had in their teenage years because there was no healing process for them. We really have become an advocate for those 18 to 30. When we think about minors in our world, they have advocates. We call it Homeland Security, FBI, law enforcement. When a girl turns 18, they call it consensual sex. And so because of that, they have no one to stand in the gap for them. And so at the Hope Center, we decided we're going to stand in the gap and we're going to make a life change in as many women as we possibly can. When it comes to the Hope Center, we took over a college campus in November of 2016. We have a 25-acre campus, 140,000 square feet. We can actually house up to 160 ladies at our program. When we think about those kind of numbers, it's really mind-boggling when we think about the needs that these ladies have. When we talk about complex trauma, when we talk about just eating disorders and addictions and self-harm, and some of our ladies have all those. And so when we think about the healing process for them and beginning to work and help them, we realize that the task is daunting, but we also realize that Jesus Christ is able to bring healing into their hearts and lives, and that's what we're seeing at the center. When it comes to these ladies, if you would say to them, what do you need to be able to go back out into society and be successful, they would probably tell you these two things. I need education and I need job skills. We just take for granted they need physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing, mental healing. They need all those kind of healings. And so one of the things that we've done at the Hope Center is we're doing everything that we can to begin to help them when it comes to education as well as job skills, and then working in all the healing process that they need. So Basically, we offer these young ladies, about 60% who come into our program do not have a high school diploma. They were trafficked during those years. And so we ask them, what would you like to do with your life? And hopefully they're going to fill in the blank. I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be a nurse. I always wanted to be. And at that point, then we just say to them, well, how can we help you get there? And it's our hope that they say, well, I probably need to start with my education. And we say, that's a great idea. And so we begin to work with them to help them to get their task, which is the old GED. And then if they actually have a high school diploma, then we do online platforms for them. And we have a couple ladies right now that's enrolled in Grace College, one in Bethel College. And so those are major accomplishments for us to be able to get these ladies to the point where they can actually begin to go to college. When it comes to these ladies, for some of them, I mean, it is a challenge for them just to function each and every day. And when I tell you that, it's really true. It's probably some of the most difficult things we've ever done in our life. When I think about being at Hope Center Indy, I was a pastor for 40 years, but maybe those 40 years really prepared me to be at this point in my life. I believe that God has called us to help the least of these. These ladies are definitely the least of these when it comes to their needs in their lives. One of the things that we're doing at the Hope Center is we're also trying to do everything when it comes to life skills. And to do that, we're creating businesses because we have to have sustainability. And so when we first showed up, one of the things that the ladies needed was clothing. And so a couple ladies said to me, hey, Pastor, let us start a boutique because it could be an ongoing fundraiser for you at the Hope Center. And I thought, boutique, never been to one, never heard of one. Could hardly say the word boutique, but if you want to do it, ladies, go for it. And so they created a boutique, and then we created a coffee shop and an ice cream shop. And so part of that, everything that we do at the Hope Center has the ladies in mind. In other words, the boutique, they can learn about retail, postage and handling, fashion and design. When it comes to the coffee shop, they can learn how to be a barista. They can learn to just serve the public, come back down into the public area. When we think about these ladies, we're not going to isolate them from society because they need to transition back into society. And so we're trying to do something uniquely different than any place in America, and that is we're trying to marry the public with young ladies coming out of human trafficking because they need support and encouragement and mentoring, and they need everything that we can to help them. And so not only do we have those businesses, but we're creating a beauty shop because some of them can learn how to be a beautician. We have a wedding barn. And so I took them all out last week, and I took them into the wedding barn. I said, ladies, do you know why we have a wedding barn? And they said, to be fundraising? I said, no. That will help. But the reason we have a wedding barn is this. We would love to bring you full circle. We would love for you to understand that all men aren't predators, that there are men out there who will honor you and love you and cherish you. And when you find that gentleman, you can come back to the Hope Center and we will do your wedding free. That's why we're here. We're to help restore them. And so it's really kind of neat to see their eyes go about this big, you know, when we tell them we're going to do free weddings. And then we always say this at the Hope Center, free we'll figure out later. But the truth of the matter is we are really the family of these women. And so we are really beginning to love them and cherish them. And when they come to our center, it's really neat to hear them pray and to talk about, they say, we get to live at a palace. And they really feel that way. They live at this beautiful facility that only God could have given to us and provided for them. And so it's one of those great things that we get to be part of, to be able to see their life beginning to come alive. Also, we have a pet hotel because of therapy and dog therapy and all that. So we're creating that and them working with the animals. We actually have 5 greenhouses that we're putting back into order because, of course, we can raise flowers. We can do a farmer's market. Part of that is that they can learn about horticulture and all those things. We have a 24-hour, 7-day prayer center as well that we put into operation because we realize that healing actually begins in the prayer center. And it's a beautiful thing to see these ladies just have the sense of God's Spirit washing over them, bringing healing into their heart and life, to get rid of the yuck of their life, the shame and the remorse, the regret. When it comes to these ladies, we realize that 95% of them were actually sexually abused as a child. They're not out there because they went out there. Something snapped on the inside of them when that happened to them, and they felt worthless and useless and hopeless. And someone needs to speak into their life that there's a new beginning and a new heart and a new chance to do something with their life. And so that's what we're doing. We've only had our doors open since August of 2017, so we have a short track record, but I want you to know something. We are starting to impact some lives lives of some ladies. And so we're really grateful for that. And we're really grateful to be able to be here and to share with you a little bit tonight. I've asked Heidi to come and share with you a little bit of what the Hope Center has meant to her. She came to us as a volunteer, and so when she came, though, the Lord began to speak to her about that. When it comes to the Hope Center, one of the areas that we didn't really think about was how many people would actually come through to volunteer. We had 40,000 volunteer hours served in 2017 at the Hope Center. And then we did tours, and when I tell you we've done tours, we have thousands of people coming through the Hope Center each and every year to see what we're actually doing. And so she came and she volunteered, and we kind of forgot that there would be people coming who have hurts, and sometimes when we share about what we are doing for these ladies, that we touch a real sensitive spot in the lives of people. About 1 in every 4 women are actually sexually abused or have some kind of sexual abuse in their background. So I've asked Heidi to come and share with you her testimony tonight. Let's give her a warm welcome.
I can see over the podium. I was a little scared I'd be short. 2 Corinthians 12:10 says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. This is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong." Recently, I heard the song, "Fear is a Liar," and it says this: when he told me you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough to put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, when he told you you're not loved, when he told you you're not beautiful, that you'll never be enough, fear is the liar. It's amazing how fear can consume us, how we can spend so much time and effort believing the lie the enemy tries to get us to believe. Isaiah 35:4 says, "Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear, your God will come to save you." So many people live sad, miserable lives because they are conflicted and feel burdened about their past. If you've been unhappy or discouraged because of the things that have happened in your past, I encourage you to change your thinking and set your focus in a whole new direction. Be determined to be what God wants you to be and receive what Jesus died to give you. Being at the Hope Center has helped heal me and has taught me that this is possible. I've been volunteering there since January 2017. I've grown to feel like the people at the Hope Center are my family, and I prayed and I asked God, how was he going to use me there? I felt him saying to me, you have to heal your own heart first and share your story. I knew in my heart I couldn't help these women unless I first learned to forgive. When I was 5 years old, my dad began to inappropriately touch me, and I didn't understand that it was wrong. He had told me that it was the way a daddy was supposed to love his daughter. I trusted him. However, I began to question this so-called love when he didn't show it to my sister. I no longer felt loved. I felt ashamed, scared, and like it was my fault. In the 3rd grade, how I felt about my dad changed. School was hard for me, if you could only imagine what, as a young girl, I was already thinking about myself. They had wanted me to take special classes. I overheard my mom telling my dad this, and I'll never forget his words. He said, "I do not have stupid kids. What did you do to her?" He was always blaming someone else. This devastated me, and I've spent my entire life trying to prove I am not stupid and not the failure that my dad made me think that I was. I remember the day the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded like it was yesterday. It was January 28th, 1986. I remember this day because it would be the last day that my dad ever touched me. Something in me made me say to him, "I am just your stupid daughter." I told him that I was telling my mom, and he got so angry that he hit me with a belt until my legs began to bleed. He knew my mom would be home soon, so he put me in the tub to wash the blood away. I never told my mom, and my dad told her I fell and that he was just washing me up. I don't know what happened or why, but my dad never touched me again after that day. Now, I think it was God protecting me from someone who was so broken that he couldn't be the one to protect me. All these years I have struggled to forgive, 30 long years. The thing that I have carried with me the most is not the physical hurt, but the words that he said. What did you do to her? Why is she so stupid? You see, our hearts and our emotions don't heal nearly as quickly as our physical selves. I have spent 30 years believing a lie and trying to prove to everyone I'm not the failure my dad made me think that I was. Since I've accepted Christ as my Savior and was baptized, I've slowly begun to let this hurt go. I've just never been able to forgive. My dad died about 16 years ago. I went to his visitation, just not the funeral. I said, how can I honor a man who has caused so much hurt and has told so many lies? How does a man like this deserve a 21-gun salute? I just would not honor him. Number one, it took God, then someone I love with all my heart, and my family at the Hope Center to help me realize that I need to forgive. I finally heard, Heidi, this wasn't your fault. You are not stupid. You did not fail him. You are not responsible. He was the adult, and he was supposed to love and protect you. I finally heard, dear younger me, it's not your fault. You were never meant to carry this beyond the cross. Now I can forgive. I can understand that God's unconditional love can and will save me from this. I no longer have to live this spirit of unforgiveness. So with my brothers and sisters near, I need to say to all of you that even though my dad is gone, I forgive him. Dad, I forgive your mind for thinking those thoughts about me. I forgive your mouth for the words that you chose to say. I forgive your hands for the way that you used them against me. I forgive you for not loving me and cherishing me. And most of all, I forgive myself for believing the lie. I was just a little girl, and you should have protected me. I did not disappoint you and let you down. You did these things to me. I forgive you, and God has given me peace. I no longer have to spend one more day believing a lie. I am not stupid. I am worthy, and I am beautifully created in God's image, and I am loved by Christ. There's a scene from the movie The War Room where the wife was angry with her husband, and she told the old lady, "Do you deserve grace?" And the old lady said, "Do you?" I ask you this, do you deserve grace? What I have learned is this: believing the lie empowers the liar. Mark 11:25 says, "And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive him, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you of your sins." What I have learned is this: the Bible says to honor your mother and father. So to truly forgive my dad, I need to give credit where credit is long overdue. I am learning more about forgiveness every day, and I need to ask my dad to forgive me. Dad, thank you for serving our country. Thank you for fighting so that I can have my freedom. Please forgive me for not honoring you when you so rightly deserved it. Please forgive me for not finding forgiveness in my heart for you sooner. Proverbs 23:22 says, "If anyone curses his mother or father, his lamp will be put out in bitter darkness." My light has been out long enough. I am ready to let it shine again so that I'm able to glorify God and honor our Father. I am now completely in the hands of mercy where I belong. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard another reason to be optimistic about what's going on in the world right now. Yes, it's a sick world that our children are experiencing in many ways. It can be a beautiful world as well. We need to continue to press forward. I quite frankly, when I met Pastor Nolan several months ago, wasn't certain. I understood Houston. I understand San Diego. I understand Florida, perhaps, in terms of trafficking. Indianapolis, come on. When I was told that Carmel is the #2 trafficked city in Indiana, I said, we got an issue. It's not Indianapolis. It's not Muncie. It's not Gary. Our leader is Fort Wayne. Carmel is #2. So think about that. Think about that. As I said, this is audience participation opportunity. Does anybody have a question for Pastor Nolan or Heidi?
So we took over.
The question is, what facility is the Hope Center now occupying?
Yeah, so we took over the old Marion County home, which used to be Verity College, and so we're right on the Marion County, Hancock County line, out toward New Palestine. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Please join me in offering another round of applause for this team. Thanks, Heidi. Thank you. Appreciate it. I need to tell you that Pastor Nolan protested vehemently. I said, you have 10 minutes to explain the Hope Center. He said it'll never happen. He was right. He was right. He was right. If you have the opportunity to go there, please take the opportunity. It's hard to explain without actually being there. They do miraculous work. I am so sorry. Yes, ma'am.
How many do they have? Is it a big facility, a small facility?
Well, it's an enormous facility. I think they have 25 acres, 225,000 square feet. And they're not totally remodeled, but and you can't ask, they won't answer, they won't tell you how many clients they have.
Do they take people outside of Indiana?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They've taken it outside of Indiana. Because the other unfortunate statistic I have to bring up to you is that there are probably less than 400 beds that offer treatment like this in the entire country. When you compare that, we have 13,000 animal shelters in this country, 400 beds. It's hard to understand. We've got our work cut out for us. We can do it. We can do it. Mary, please.
Is there any kind of insurance that covers this for families that find themselves in this situation?
The question is there any insurance that covers these situations? If there is, I'm not aware of it. The ones in Houston, we treat from 12 to the age of 18. Most of those are, as I actually said, court adjudicated, so the state pays for that. Most of the people that Pastor Nolan treats are done through donations. All right, I'm going to turn to, I'm sorry, that's my wife. It's been a long night. Thank you. Sandra, that was not a question. I'm sorry. That's my wife. We're going to say. One other bad statistic I need to share with you, and it goes along the same lines. In San Diego, California, another hub of trafficking, they have detected human trafficking activities in all 100% of all the high schools and some of the middle schools. So don't think for a moment that's not happening here in Indiana, please. The good news is, the Hope Center, we can win. We can win the streets. We can win the streets. But we've got to try. We've got to get going. Looks like we have a question in the back. Kevin.
Denny, Pastor Nolan has been a pastor of my wife, Annette, and I for many years. And what he won't tell you, but the Hope Center, when it's up and running and completed, it will be the largest facility in not only in Indiana, but in the United States.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to change the emphasis on you once again. Can we have the next slide? I'm sorry. Thank you. I can't see. Who is it? Please. Don Lang, please, sir.
Question. I understood the lady from Houston said that she had like 44 girls. And then when the young boys brought into the system, they were able to get federal funds. Is that correct?
Ashley? Do we have a microphone for Ashley?
For the juvenile detention facility, so the center's main campus has 44 beds. And then under that umbrella, there's the juvenile detention facility. So on the girls' side, we have 24 beds. On the boys' side, it's a generalized trauma program, so we actually have 80 beds for the boys. The funding for the girls' program is a mixture of county funds, so we have a contract with the county, but also funded by grants. So the boys' side is completely grant funded. So.
So is there a number that you have to achieve in order to get those funds?
That I'm not sure.
Thank you for those questions. Again, as I said, I'm going to change gears on you now, because the last thing I want to talk to you about is the fact that we can win the kids in the streets. Treatment is wonderful. Prevention is ideal. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm going to invite my good friend John Houghton, who's Regional Director for Chicagoland Young Life, to the podium to share his story. Please join me in welcoming John. Well, John, there are organizations and individuals focused on this efforts. Tell us your sojourn. Let me first of all tell you the personal relationship that I have with this gentleman. He actually, his mother grew up with my wife as a sorority sister. I met the Houghtons in Iowa City, Iowa, where I went to undergraduate studies. We were in Carmel when he moved here to start the Young Life program in Carmel High School. He has been extraordinarily instrumental in raising my 4 children. He will, as of October, have married 2 of my children.
Officiated the wedding for 2 of your children, not married 2 of your children.
Does that mean it's not official?
Just want to be clear, I have a wife who is not related to Denny.
Well, when John and Annie moved from Carmel to go to Chicago, many hearts fell and sank because of the impact that he and his wife have had on Carmel, Indiana. But he has taken on a new focus in Chicago, and he's not in Wheaton or Lake Forest, the Carmels of Illinois, Chicago area. He's in the hoods. He's in Austin neighborhood, and he's in the south side of Chicago, addressing the kids before they get into trouble, before they get caught. I'd love to have you hear John's story.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, and Young Life is in all of those places, as well as being in North Lawndale and Austin and the south side of Chicago. And one of the things that Denny and I have connected on over the last few years with Youth Opportunity and with Young Life, that most of the time Young Life, if you're familiar with this, is sort of an act-alone program, and that as we've been predominantly historically a suburban ministry, that part of the recognition is, I think, an increased level of humility in our organization that says we have to recognize when there's needs that we can't meet. And this is especially true in less financially resourced communities and in more violent crime neighborhoods. And so I hope we're right in this, that in the last couple of years in Chicago, we've invested heavily financially and in people resources in partnering with organizations that are meeting more holistic needs in these less financially resourced communities, where we recognize that some of our assets and deficiencies match up well with the assets and deficiencies of these other organizations, and say now together we can stay good at what we're good at and only try to do that. And you guys keep doing what you're good at, and you only try to do that. And as Mary and Lauren shared well, that sometimes the needs are for multiple different things, and oftentimes one organization can't do all of that. And so that's been a lot of what I've worked on as I've gotten to know people in these less financially resourced communities in Chicago.
Extraordinary response. And as John indicated, we've talked long, but we're not done, about the partnerships. Public, private, whatever it takes. Young Life is extraordinary in terms of the mentoring process, and one of the 4 emphases for Youth Organization or Youth Opportunity Foundation is developing an effective, impactful mentoring process. So, John, give me your sense of how these 2 organizations can work together to improve the outcomes for our children.
Yeah, well, and I think, obviously, I've sort of committed my life to this idea of mentoring, and so many of the words that have been shared tonight are consistent with what we care about in Young Life too. But 5 years ago, my cousin David died of an accidental overdose. So, born within months of each other in the same hospital to similar families, we were, the same hallways, we were tennis doubles partners, won a state title together. And yet somewhere along the way, our paths differed, and I think that David and I both navigated adolescence in the way most of us navigate life, of just trying to make life work, that things are not right, things are feeling broken. And the temptation, I think, for us as adults is to look down on teenagers that are making decisions that we would consider destructive or bad decisions. But in reality, they're just like you and I, that things aren't working. And so they try to make life work in whatever way they do. And so David chose a more destructive road along the way. And I don't know how it happened in that way, but so fought these battles for many years and seemed to have turned a corner on it. And at 32 years old, had just completed his first semester of law school and got a kidney stone and went to the hospital and understandably was prescribed pain medication. And within days of leaving the hospital, his addiction came back full force, and he died of an accidental overdose days later. And I think for those of us in this room, we've probably lived enough of life, and Denny, you've done a good job in the presentation tonight for us to realize that these devastating challenges can hit anyone. And David was one of those examples for me. And I would also trust that if you're here tonight, that you believe that all kids are deserving of an opportunity to succeed. And so for us in Young Life, what that means, and for me personally, what that means, is that I believe that all kids deserve to know that they were created by God and that they are God's masterpiece, fearfully and wonderfully made, and that they're worthy of love. And that is what drives me, and as we've talked, it's part of what's exciting to me about what Youth Opportunity is doing. And one of my friends in these partnerships that Denny mentioned, a guy I've gotten to know that's worked with gang-affiliated youth in North Lawndale for 30 years. He's taught me a lot of new vocabulary in our friendship the last couple of years. One of the most significant being that he refuses to call his kids at-risk youth and instead calls them at-promise youth. And I love that Youth Opportunity's commitment to these at-promise youth. A few years ago, I was at a lunch in Indianapolis, And it was for community members following a pretty significant uptick in gun violence. And so the director of public safety was keynoting this lunch, and while we're in the buffet line, there's a woman from the mayor's office that asked me what I do. I describe Young Life, and she says, oh, you'd be interested in this program that she had just been charged with starting. And the city was investing money and resources into trying to fight this uptick in gun violence. And so she tells me about this great program, amazing curriculum, amazing teachers that were coming to do it, and the plan sounded amazing. And so I asked what I thought was an innocent question and just said, how will kids get involved in this program? And she said, we just think that kids will have enough desire to succeed in life that they'll want to do this because they know this could help them to succeed. And then she said, and we'll raffle off an iPad at the first meeting. But as she shared this, I was simultaneously discouraged and hopeful. I was discouraged, and I remain simultaneously discouraged and hopeful about teenagers. And I vacillate from one to the next very quickly. And I was discouraged to think that the best minds and a great deal of well-intentioned money was being invested in a program to stem the tide of gun violence and reverse cycles of trauma and violence. And the best we could come up with was hoping that kids would desire to succeed in life enough that they would opt into this program, or that the lure of an iPad would be enough to get them to this. But I probably, like many of you, have thought more than once, if there's so many programs for at-risk youth, then why are there so many youth who are still struggling? You know, why do we have statistics and stories like we've heard tonight? And I was discouraged because our most at-risk youth, our most at-promise youth are not going to opt into a program like this because their desire to succeed in life simply isn't great enough for many of them to get them there. And in the next moment, I was hopeful because I thought maybe we just have been doing it wrong. And maybe it's just a slight tweak in how we do this, and we can make a difference. We, God's people, can help at-promise youth live up to their full promise. And my hope continues to win out over my discouragement. So the next thing that happened to me at this lunch actually happens to me a lot, and a chart popped into my head while I'm going through the buffet line, and it was this chart. And I'm going to get professorial here for a minute, and I might get it wrong, but I think it's the x-axis on the bottom here, right? This is the desire to succeed in life. And as you move to the right, that this means a kid's desire has to be is growing, right? And on the left, then, is the number of people willing to do the work. And that you'll see as the desire of an individual kid increases, there's a whole bunch of people. There's a relative abundance of people that are willing to work with kids who want to be invested in. There's a relative abundance of people that are willing to mentor kids who want to be mentored. And you'll see partway through, if you can see from the back there's a threshold to opt in. I think this is true for kids or adults. I'm going to talk about kids. But you have to reach a requisite level of desire to succeed to opt into the myriad of programs that exist for kids. The number of people willing to mentor or work with kids increases exponentially as you move to the right. But the statistics and stories we've heard tonight are about kids that have not crossed, primarily about kids that have not crossed that needed threshold to have a high enough desire to succeed in life to opt into these programs. I hope this chart makes sense to you. It makes sense to me, and it's the whole paradigm of why I believe in what I know of youth opportunity. Because there just is a scarcity of people willing to do the work on the left side of the line. Because this work requires patience and courage and time and a willingness, maybe even a probability to fail often. We heard it earlier. Lauren, is this a common story? Well, yes and no, right? We have to be willing. We have to have people that are willing to stick with, because the work on the left side of the line, there are just fewer. It's just the likelihood of a shining example success story at the end of it is not as likely. But all kids deserve an opportunity to succeed, to thrive. Because these kids, like your kids, are created in the image of God. So I think Young Life leaders, where I spend my time, and youth opportunity staff need to live on the left side of this line. Due to the scarcity of the people, we, the people whose hearts beat for at-risk youth, should spend the majority of our time and our resources with kids and people that are on the left side of this line. I recently heard a national columnist speaking on this topic, at-risk youth and mentoring. And she said, and I understand why she said this, but her encouragement to kids was that you need to show people you are worth being invested in. And I get what she was saying, but I think our role is to help kids believe that they are worthy of being invested in before they believe it themselves. It's not their fault that they don't have the requisite desire to succeed in life. Life has beaten them up. They've been robbed of hope and opportunity. They need someone to believe that they're worthy of being invested in before they believe it themselves. There's an important role for people on the right side of the line. I just don't think it's ours. There's value in working with kids that are opting in. It's just that there's plenty of people willing to do that work. The story, Father Greg Boyle works with gang-affiliated youth in Los Angeles. You may have heard of him. He's gained a relatively large audience through Homeboy Industries. He tells this story of one of his guys, Pedro. And Pedro's brother has just died, and Father Greg, or as Pedro calls him, G, is driving Pedro to his brother's funeral. He says, "It's a trip, G. I had this dream last night. You were in it. And in this dream, Pedro and I are in this large, empty room. Just Pedro and Father Greg. No lights. No illuminated exit signs. No light creeping in from under the doors. No windows. There is no light. He seems to know that I'm there with him. A sense, really, though we do not speak. And suddenly, in the dark silence, I retrieve a flashlight from my pocket, and I push it on. I find the light switch in the room on the wall, and I shine this narrow beam of light on the switch. I don't speak. I just hold the beam steady, unwavering. Pedro says that even though no words are exchanged, he knows he is the only one who can turn this light switch on. He thanks me for happening to have a flashlight. He makes his way to the switch, following the beam with, I suppose, some trepidation. He arrives at the switch, takes a deep breath, and flips it on. The room is flooded with light. He's now sobbing at this point as he tells the dream, and with a voice of astonishing discovery, he says, "And the light is better than the darkness." And as if he did not previously know this to be the case, he's weeping, unable to continue. Then he says, "I guess my brother just never found the light switch." Possessing flashlights and occasionally knowing where to aim them has to be enough for us. Fortunately, none of us can save anybody, but we all find ourselves in this dark, windowless room, fumbling for grace and flashlights. You aim the light this time, and I'll do it the next. The slow work of God. And you hope and you wait for the light, this astonishing light. So, I'm grateful that I get to wake up every day with the sole purpose of helping people shine flashlights on light switches. And I'm encouraged to be here tonight because of Youth Opportunity Foundation's commitment to shining flashlights on light switches as well. Because as Pedro says, the light is better than the darkness.
incredible story. Another incredible story. Who has a question for John? Anybody? You just want to go home. We're not done yet. Thanks, John. Yeah. Appreciate it. Not done, but close. These stories had to be told. I promised you an hour. We've exceeded it slightly. But again, I think these things need to be told, because without hearing the truth, there's no action. Without action, there are no outcomes. So that's the point where we are. This is where youth opportunity comes in. What did we learn tonight? We learned that our kids are growing up in a very challenging and intrusive world. It's not relenting. It's getting worse. We need to now stand up and take on the challenge. We need to follow what you've heard here, stories-wise, with the understanding that we can win. We can treat these issues. There are 20, according to NBC, who can't refute that. There, 1 in 5 children, 20 million kids plus, have a diagnosable mental health issue. The real challenge there is only 15% of them are receiving treatment. That's a huge gap. It's a huge gap. We need to close that gap. What else do we learn? We can win the streets. You heard that very vividly. But it takes a determined community. You have to go out and challenge. You have to walk into the strip joints. You have to challenge the pimps, the traffickers. We need to take them down. And as was so eloquently stated, everybody rallies, well, most everybody, to the opportunity to save a child. But once you get over 18, it becomes consensual. We need to change that paradigm. And we can. That's the good news. And we can win with the kids in the streets, and John was very eloquent. We need to go out and find not only the at-risk, but the at-promise children. We need to go in a strong way. That's where the foundation comes in to play. That's where we're focused. We have 4 funding pillars that we are seeking to raise money, effort, awareness about. The first is access to post-secondary education. We're not talking just about college, but we're talking about vocational training. We have been able to partner with Ivy Tech Community College, and Kevin Honigford is here as a representative of Ivy Tech. He has been a yeoman in pushing this partnership through. We currently have 4 students in online programming presented by Ivy Tech, presenting hope to these kids. They're getting an education that gives them hope, in fact, that there can be a future for them. Kevin, thank you. We appreciate that. We are focused on improving clinical treatment. You heard clinical treatment works. It's got to get better. We have to have more of it, and it has to have better. We have to have better outcomes. Dr. Lance Trexler, my partner at the Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana, has agreed to join the board of directors for Youth Opportunity Foundation. He is already drafting a grant to get access to millions of dollars. There's not necessarily a problem with government monies. It's just how it's utilized. The window is opened up for us. We're going to take advantage of it to help transition these children into post-secondary education. Go figure, because it works. We know it works, and we need to provide that process. Thanks, Lance. We are also about developing an effective mentoring program. And again, this is not a unique idea. Many people have tried it. They haven't gone deep enough. I've challenged John Houghton. I said, what's special about your program? He said, you know what? We're not certain. But they've started a multi-ethnic program in Young Life. They go where the kids are. They don't expect the kids to come to them. They go where they are, and that's effective. We need to replicate that process, build it into the residential treatment programs so that, again, we can increase the hope that there is a possibility, there's opportunity. There's a trusted relationship in their lives that they can count on when things go wrong, and they will. Once these kids leave these programs, our treatment staff are not doing it for them anymore. They've got to do it on their own. But they've got to have a trusted relationship that they can turn to help them make those decisions. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Last is jobs. They need access to jobs. We need to give these kids options so they know that dealing drugs is not a viable profession for them in the future. They've already tried that. It didn't work. But we need other options. And I know employers are clamoring for this. We've got 3.9% unemployment, whatever number you believe. Go to the inner cities. That unemployment rate is 15, 20, sometimes 30%. Some people will say, you know what, they don't want a job. They really don't want to work that hard. I disagree. I don't believe it. I sat through a meeting not too long ago where people were offering jobs, but they said people couldn't get to the job. They didn't show up. Well, they didn't have transportation. Come on. We've got to complete, we've got to tie the bow here. We've got to tie the knot. We've got to complete the job. We can't just choose one opportunity and ignore the others. We've got to do the complete thing. So this is what I'm asking for you tonight. And I appreciate you being here. Please know that. Each of you was given a pledge card. And here's what I'm asking you. We need dollars. There's no doubt about it. We need dollars. If you have the abilities, you have the interest, please indicate that on the pledge card. But I need more. If you can't help us from a dollar standpoint, that's fine. Help us identify potential donors who can. That is great value to me. Put that down on your pledge card. I love that. We also need time. I need to develop those donors. If you've got time to help me, that's perfect. That's perfect. If it's just prayer, I've got a table. My small group is here supporting this process. I know I'm being taken care of from a prayer standpoint. We need more of this. We need more of this to make this work. So those are the four funding items: post-secondary education, mentoring, jobs, and improved clinical treatments. That's what we're doing. That's where we're going. Please join us. We need your help in a tremendous way. So with that, if you would look at that pledge card, please leave it with us if you can this evening. If somebody has the opportunity to provide something, a credit card, you need a credit card, Jessica, raise your hand. She has a card reader in the back. We'd be more than happy and appreciative to take that. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your generous sharing of your time. Thanks to all those who put this effort together. Thanks to all our sponsors. We have it listed here. Many of these folks you may know. We appreciate the fact that they've made this possible. I appreciate your time. The valet was supposed to leave at 8:30, thank goodness. They are still here because I made a deal with the manager and said I get all the keys of cars still left here at 8:30. That's not true. Thanks so very much for being here tonight. God bless you, and drive safely on the way home.